Richard Florida is one of the most respected and prominent urbanists in the world. He is most noted for coming up with what is known as the creative class theory, that talented individuals will congregate in certain superstar cities. That might be Paris, New York, or in this case, San Francisco. However, that was all before COVID. Rents in the San Francisco Bay Area, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, have decreased by an astounding 9.2%. Now, that could just be a short-term trend, but what if it means the end of superstar cities? Welcome to the Urban Files.
G-Train to Church Avenue, next stop Classen Avenue, stay clear, close door.
Welcome to the Urban Files, a show that provides news and analysis on a variety of city-related topics, how we live, work, play, and move around in the cities we love. Join your hosts, Max and Chuck, as they cover the latest news from the American urban landscape. So Max, how have things been going for you of late?
Pretty good. Within the context of this shelter in place and watching the numbers nervously as they creep up. But How about you?
Absolutely. It's been kind of harrowing to see how long this is going on and knowing how long it could be. I know one of the things, probably more from a trivial standpoint, is I wish that I could, travel a little more, but I'm making do actually honestly by playing video games. They are channeling my wanderlust, and I'm playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's incredible. I can go see mountains and landscapes and cities and also, stay safe. So you got to make do with what you can right now. So we're going to have another guest on this week. He and I actually went to high school together. So Brendan Hurley, he's an urban designer and planner at Daya in Baccia and currently lives in San Francisco. He's working on generated and specific plans for clients throughout California and assists with the variety of public and private sector projects. He previously worked as a planner at Placeworks in Berkeley and an urban design intern for Naporto San Francisco, and he also worked as a sustainable neighborhood designer at Sun Studio in Denver. So he is a very talented individual and someone that I've known for a long time, and I'm excited to see what he has to say about what else is happening right now.
Cool, yeah, I'm excited to have him on too, particularly because San Francisco is such a intriguing city for me and a possible home in the future. So I'd love to get his take on the city and the crisis and how things are going to be moving forward.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to mention our partner, Real Estate IQ, is #1 in deal finding, a technology and data company focused on creating work-from-home automated systems for the real estate investment community. Real Estate IQ is trusted by over 60,000 active and passive investors. Real Estate IQ's mission is to empower your journey to freedom and success. The company is expanding nationally, and they are looking for local partners to participate in their growth. To learn more, visit www.realestateiq.co. You're squeezing us in your lunch break?
Yeah, being a consultant, you're billable for every hour of the day. So I appreciate you being flexible and taking the time.
Absolutely, yeah. So how have things been going for you?
Good. People are starting to get used to working from home. And then we're, of course, adapting as a firm and as a profession towards what that means. So everything's going fine.
I have to wonder, how much has this changed kind of your day-to-day right now?
I don't have to commute, which is really nice.
That's gotta be great, yeah.
So that affects me directly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So other than that, it's fine. I'm in front of a computer kind of either way. So
gotcha, yeah.
I just had to adapt to using my own personal computer, and that's been fine.
It seems to be a trend all around the the Bay Area and stuff, and Twitter's CEO effectively saying forever, which who knows what that means, and I think Google saying for the rest of this year. Do you think that will be a theme of more and more companies jumping in on that out there?
I think so. As far as they're able to work remotely, the planning profession is a little unique, where we are very much like a place-based profession. So, planners, we usually go out into the community to talk to people. We go to public hearings, we go host public meetings, and a lot of that stuff is hard to do remotely.
Understandable. Yeah.
We were making do with what we have now, which is using Zoom and a lot of online feedback and a lot of online outreach.
Yeah.
But for other professions that are not quite like physical outreach, I think it is possible that they'll stay remotely at least for a little while.
Do you foresee that changing kind of a lot of what the the market will look at like out there for an apartment? I mean, I know like I saw it was like 9% decrease overall in rents in the area. So I wasn't sure if you feel like that will be more of a trend, or if that's kind of maybe just I guess a sign of the times,
Yeah, I mean, I think people are going to prioritize, like you're no longer going to an office, like your house is going to be your office. So
Right.
I think a lot of people are going to prioritize having access to outdoor patios and outdoor spaces, as well as having rooms big enough to live and work in. So in terms of the larger housing market, of course, I'm sure you're aware that housing is kind of scarce in the Bay Area, and it's really expensive. So hopefully this will help lower the rents for a lot of people that do have to be in this physical location. I'm thinking about like nurses and firefighters and people that work the grocery stores and everything like that. So hopefully it becomes more affordable for people to live here that are able to.
I think especially that population you talk about, nurses, teachers, I mean, people that really, drivers for the community, it seems like it would be very much a challenge even now, but like really leading into COVID, prices were really ramping out of control.
Exactly. So, I think it's a blessing in disguise. Like I think people will still be able to have their tech jobs and work it remotely, and then if they're able to and when they want to live somewhere else, then I think it's fine.
Do you foresee it contributing to a long-term dip in people living in the Bay Area, or do you think that it will kind of revert back, but maybe some positive steps will be taken?
Yeah, I mean, I like what draws people to the Bay Area is, of course, like the tech and innovation, and even like even our Uber drivers have a startup or are passionate about something. So I think that really draws people here, and I would imagine that would still be the case even in the future. A lot like what draws us to a more urban life is usually experiences and bars and shows and culture and all that stuff, and where COVID does put a kind of hamper on that now, where people are prioritizing moving away. A lot of people I know are even moving back to their parents' house. I think that might just be a short-term thing. Once the fun things start coming back again, I think people will be attracted to this place.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's no reason to be in the city when you can't really take part in those activities and the amenities. How did you end up in the Bay Area?
So I went to Berkeley for grad school, and got my master's degree in city planning. So once I moved here, I met my fiance Kelly, and we just love the Bay Area right now.
Cool. No Bears hat, because Chuck's all about representing the teams on the show.
Yeah.
Oh no, not we don't really not big into sports. I'm wearing a tiny bicycle shirt though, if you can see it.
There you go. Hey, yeah,
that's my representation, I guess.
I feel like that is a sport out in the Bay Area for sure. I mean, yeah.
So for you then, personally, how do you think this may play out in the long
run? Me personally, like my personal life decisions. Yeah. Hopefully, like I said, like planners are usually a little bit different. Because a lot of the work we do, we want to be, tied into the community. So it's really hard to plan internationally from just like a US mindset. And same thing, it's hard to plan, you know, California or even Bay Area cities if you're living anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the time being, I think working remotely is definitely going to be an increasingly attractive option, especially for planners. It's just the whole transition to back whenever we can, or we're supposed to be, you know, meeting in person. That's kind of the change, I guess.
Well, I think that component is essential just for, you know, getting the public on, like, or at least communicating to the public what's happening, and then kind of like, you know, you have that ability on the ground there to kind of see things that, you know, you don't see if you're necessarily out of the area. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't like planning from afar, right? We enjoy going to see the actual place that we're thinking about, and meeting with locals and going to local restaurants and businesses and stuff like that, and really getting a feel for the community. And that's what makes it fun, honestly. Definitely enjoy that aspect of it a lot.
Absolutely. So I think speaking to that a little bit, what do you think as far as the Bay Area? Because I think there has traditionally on housing been somewhat of a NIMBY segment within some of the single family sections of the Bay Area, which that's everywhere, but with limited space, that's more of a challenge. So how do you see that situation evolving, and how do you think it informs what you are looking to do, you know, coming out of this?
So I mean, the planning narrative has changed tremendously. What I like about the planning profession is that it always changes depending on what are the issues that our society is facing at hand. So right now, racial equity is another big issue that planners are dealing with. So planners have to be adaptive to new circumstances. And we've been really pushing housing in the Bay Area for a long time, because it's sorely needed. So with the whole COVID, we're able to let up that a little bit, at least for now. No one really knows what everything's going to be like in you know, five years, let alone, you know, next month. So it's just kind of like planning as best as we can. And people will always need a place to live. People will always need easy access to groceries. People still enjoying going out to restaurants. So there's some of those things that are staple for a city that will remain. Yeah.
So there's no doubt about that. And so the hope, I guess, is that it will do that, but it will also, you know, become a more human place coming out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And having like a tight-knit community is more important than ever, I would say. Knowing your neighbors so that you can, you know, social distance in small groups. And I think all that is still very important.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you think might be changing in terms of like the city environment itself? Anything that you see or you might predict?
It's hard. Like, so retail was already starting to plummet, especially in San Francisco, where the retail store frontages are expensive. COVID essentially exacerbated that. So most of our shopping areas in downtown are now boarded up with plywood, and a lot of them are going out of business. So that's going to be a new challenge moving forward. Is thinking about what does the retail space look like in the city, and how to kind of recover from that.
Well, especially with retail, I mean, already in general, like just the general trend around the country with, you know, malls shuttering and all of that, like the movement towards online retail was really accelerated by this. And so I think the viability of a business in such a high cost, high rent area is based on having tremendous foot traffic. And if you don't have that, which you don't have now, it requires you to really be, I think, flexible. And so I think we've seen some of that, but it's really not one method is going to help or save all of these businesses. And I think we're starting to, unfortunately, see some of those impacts.
Yeah, and a lot of that foot traffic is from tourism.
Right.
So cities like San Francisco are tremendously impacted by lack of tourism, and a lot of these restaurants and bars and retail shops are dependent on having people visit here from all over the world. So that's going to significantly impact not only the amount of people on the streets, but also the fiscal impacts of cities are going to be tremendous.
Yeah. I mean, it's been said often, and I think it's quite true that the future of brick and mortar has been shifting towards much more like experiential kind of businesses. And even when it is retail, they're focused on the retail experience in the store. And so it's tough because that's really what's been cut out. So moving forward, I guess a lot of these stores will have to find a new way to make it workable with social distancing guidelines and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like that's why people love living in cities, is for all the variety of experiences. So I think if there's a demand, stores will open back up again and restaurants will re-enter. It's just our jobs as planners to make sure that can be done without too many like red tape or too many restrictions or too many fees. Really thinking about how to make that resurgence of businesses easier is important.
Yeah, and I think that ease, like I think one of the big things is just like America really seems to hate alfresco dining. I'm not sure why, but like it's very difficult to do things on the street or to get the permit or whatever to do something like that. And so, I mean, you're seeing more of that, but I think even in the major cities, it seems like there's more red tape than you'd ever expect there to be for getting things on the ground like that. Especially, I mean, we're supposed to be the land of capitalism, and there's not barriers.
The reason why we have so many regulations is a lot of times for safety and food safety and making sure that the kitchen's vented properly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to figure out how to be more business inclusive. I think is definitely a good way forward.
Absolutely.
So I've got a multi-part question. I think I'm just gonna take everything and throw it at you. And
okay, I'll try my best.
Yeah.
I'll try my best.
Earlier, we were talking a little bit. You mentioned about like blue collar workers maybe being able to take advantage of this situation and maybe move closer to their jobs in the city. I mean, I'm wondering how far that extends, if that really would benefit service workers as well, because we hear a lot of times, especially in the Bay Area, about service workers having to travel many hours from the outskirts to come into work and then head all the way home and sleep and do it again. So I'm wondering if you really think that maybe there might be that dramatic of a change that we see something benefiting people in that class. And also thinking of that as well, how this might affect transit, because a lot of those people take transit.
A lot of them also drive too. So ideally, I mean, so Chuck, you mentioned that the rents decreased by what, 10%, I think is what you said earlier?
9 to 10% range in 1 month, which is, wow. Yeah.
It will have to be decreased by like 50% in order to make it
Agreed.
affordable.
Yeah.
So like, so I would take that, as a slight grain of salt. Like it's, apartment complexes and housing are more open to deals and to have cheaper rent. And hopefully it gets low enough where we can have a lot of these people that have been excluded from the city be able to move back. And a lot of them do have to live in faraway communities, and the only way to get into the city is to drive. So I think so hopefully that they do move back in the city, those who can be far away, and are able to enjoy the city and live comfortably, and hopefully reduce the congestion while at it. The other transportation options, like San Francisco is only starting to open back up again. So I don't think the Muni subway is even online quite yet. So I guess transportation is still important for getting across the city effectively. So in terms of like BART ridership and stuff like that, which is more regional, I think people who are able to use BART to come in the city probably live close enough to a BART station, so they'll still keep using it. But we have to get over like the public fear that coronavirus is spread through public transportation.
Right.
So that includes, making sure that everything is cleaned and spreading awareness about, mask requirements.
Could that be a side benefit, that transit systems become very sanitized moving forward?
I hope so. I hope so. That'd be a nice benefit for sure.
I've heard some like positive signs with that in like France and Japan so far, but then again, it comes back to, are Americans going to wear masks on transit? And so I think there's a personal and a group onus there if we're coming back, because like, I mean, if you're really afraid, I mean, realistically, you probably should be wearing a mask, So that's
So that's the thing, is that the people are like who are really concerned will end up driving.
Yeah.
So like our traffic has been down throughout the Bay Area significantly. A portion of that is because people are working from home more often. So hopefully that trend continues and we don't get all snarled up in traffic like we were pre-COVID.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hope of what, really what we're talking about is that out of this, it becomes more livable and kind of human in terms of affording to live in a city like that. But if not, for tech people and otherwise, do we have any thoughts among us, among cities that could really potentially steal Silicon Valley and San Francisco's thunder as far as being, because it is so synonymously linked up as being, the tech capital. And I'm just kind of thinking on where could be next this changes the paradigm.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the Amazon second headquarters, that whole kind of fiasco, these companies, the technology companies, are still really attracted to lively, progressive cities. Yeah. So almost like there's like Google offices spread throughout the country. In Pittsburgh, Austin has another huge tech scene too. So a lot of the cities are trying to attract these tech workers, and I hope like you can do that, but I think it would be much stronger if you attracted like all kinds of workers, right?
Yeah.
So like the one of the downsides is that a lot of people usually have higher salaries in terms of tech workers, which then drives up the housing prices because landlords can ask for more rent. Right. That essentially happened to the Bay Area over the course of 20 to 30 years and lack of growing housing. So I think that's something that these cities who are attracting these big tech companies should also consider about how to make sure that your city's flexible enough to have additional housing being built if the workforce increases dramatically.
Yeah. So I mean, what you say is like it's almost like they're a victim of their own success, kind of. So a city should be careful about trying to attract overly talented. I don't want to say overly talented residents, but if it's not coming from all stratuses of the income sphere, it can become a very tough place to live, if you're not already skilled in an area like that, or even if you are.
Correct. I think you got it.
A lot of cities that have tried to be sort of that alternative to the Bay Area in terms of tech, they're trying to attract companies, like you're saying. I wonder if there is a place for a city to try and attract workers specifically in that industry now that we're seeing the potential shift to remote.
Yeah. So the reason why San Francisco / Silicon Valley is kind of like the tech capital of the world is that they have enough companies that come together that are in the same industry, and then you have a lot of opportunities for cooperation, and you have a lot of workforce that's located in one area. If there's a single Twitter office in in a different city somewhere else, like that's not as attractive as having, 10 startups and 3 major companies. So I think it's ultimately it's a combination of everything, right?
Yeah.
And that's why San Francisco and Silicon Valley have been kind of that hub for such a long time. But as you can see, that some of these companies are starting to branch out, and having that critical mass, I think is important for at least these companies. But then, Chuck, like you said, there's a lot of unintended consequences that happen if you don't prepare for it.
I feel like the key is to have venture capital that's willing to invest in other places. And we're starting to see that happen more. If you follow the money, I guess the money is what's going to dictate whether it's possible to have sort of the ecosystem in other under the radar places.
Yeah. And economies of scale of human capital.
And it's all about connections too. Like if you got a job at Lyft or Uber, then you're kind of like in that territory, and it's really easy to like move because you're getting like connections between those companies and like other businesses. So it's almost like a club, more or less, is that you have to, like, the hard part is getting a job at Google, but then once you have that job, then you can move to like any tech company pretty easily. So I mean, but tech companies are still laying people off too. Like they're not immune to COVID and in the market and everything. So it'll be an interesting time for sure to see how everything kind of evolves.
All right. So I think we're going to come into our final thought segment. Sure. And thanks again for, being here and sharing your expertise and all of that about, what's coming on. But what we do here usually is we just share our thoughts about, in kind of a short way, about something happening with the world and urbanism, or, vaguely related to it. So for me, I wanted to send happy trails to Segways. So they are actually no more, I believe, as of yesterday or even this morning or something I was reading in the Hustle. And so I think it was a gradual death spiral for them. I think once you brought the small motorized scooters into cities that were, people still hate, but they hate and they're slightly cheaper and smaller. So that kind of really eradicated the rest of their flow of people coming through for $25 an hour. So, it was a nice run, and it inspired many things, but, I just wanted to send them off, I guess.
The inventor and founder of Segway was Dean Kamen, and he was a sort of a cult hero for kids like me who were in robotics in high school, and that's sad. Tragic. Yeah, my final thought, I was actually just going to give a shout out to Tulsa Remote, the remote working program. If you're interested in living in Tulsa and you have a remote job, they're accepting applications currently for their new cohort. And apparently the first year was very successful, handing out $10,000 grants to people who would want to relocate to Tulsa, setting you up with the co-working space and some other little perks, something to think about.
So they've got Andrew Yang beat, huh? So.
Yeah, so I guess my final thoughts are we need, as a planning profession, need to think about like the future of cities and how to make them more equitable and more affordable and more inclusive of different kinds of people, and making sure that they like remain diverse. And I think that's the new challenge for us planners, is to see what that looks like and to engage the community in all aspects of it too. So
absolutely, and I'm sure you will be one of the leaders in that push.
Yeah.
So
that's Richard Florida's new urban crisis, right?
Yeah.
just what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much, Brendan.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
All right.
Hi, this is Max, one of your hosts on the Urban Files. I want to thank you for listening and let you know that if you're interested in the type of discussions we have on the show, please also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where we share more content like this. Just head to facebook.com/theurbanfiles and you'll find links to the rest of our social media. Thanks again, and back to the show.
And we're back. And the question for today is, what is the largest employer in the city of San Francisco?
I don't know. How about you?
Yeah. So, well, my first thought, was actually Uber, right? And just because it is such a capital there, and I don't know how that employment base would be counted, but I'd have to imagine there's a significant number of people working for the company that live within city limits, and also people that just run day-to-day affairs or do it as part of their side hustle from living there. So my guess is Uber.
I want to go with that, but I think Uber moved to Oakland.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm guessing that answer is no longer correct.
Right.
I don't know who else has a major presence there, or if it would just be something like a University of San Francisco.
Right. So,
Cal State.
Well, I was thinking it could be like the city of San Francisco, like the municipal
that's always,
thing.
Yeah.
But I actually found it, and it turns out to be Salesforce. Salesforce does have the largest number.
No, it's they just slipped my mind. I mean, I figured somebody would slip my mind. But yeah, Salesforce definitely huge presence in a lot of cities. But when you consider that they're based there, not a surprise.
Yeah, so I'm not able to find a specific number, but it is Salesforce. So, And especially with them building that new transit center, that is, it seems like that number will only continue to grow.
All right. So well, that was fun, Chuck.
It was, yes. Yep.
I'll talk to you next week.
All right, have a good one.